Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. We're going to be looking at some cornerstone scriptures on the identity of God, showing his oneness, his absolute monotheism. So let's get started. May tell a couple of neat historical stories as we talk about this. So first is Deuteronomy 6:4, known as the Shema. Hear, that's the first word there. And this is considered foundational doctrine of the Jewish religion as well. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Hear, O Israel, Jehovah our Elohim is one Jehovah, Echad, one Jehovah, not a compound, but absolutely one. Now, this is seen in the New Testament and quoted. Those of you, I've done a video on why Echad is absolute one, gone through many of the instances where it's used as absolute one, but it's really incontrovertible when Jesus quotes it because he uses like our number one, like it's an integer, like heis is the word for one. So this is Mark 12:28-30. Now look at the importance that Jesus placed on this scripture. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? Now, of course, he would know what is the first of the 10 commandments or the first of the 613 commandments. What is it? 365 positive and 248 negative commandments, corresponding to the number of bones in the body, according to the Jews. But he's asking, what's the most important? What's first in importance? And Jesus answered him. He could have said anything. And he could have said the Trinity is the most important. But no. Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. That kurios are theos is heis kurios. When a Palestinian Jew said kurios, unlike the pagan world around him, he meant Jehovah. He was not going to call the Roman emperor that, anything like in all the coinage and all this. So notice, Jesus could have said anything. Don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't take the name of the Lord in vain. He says the very first foundational commandment of all is God is one. That Jehovah our Elohim is one Jehovah. And that shows, as is often the case, how Deuteronomy 6:4, how Echad is to be interpreted. Jesus quoted it here. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment, Mark 12:28-30. So God is one, and because he's one, love him with everything. Now, a real mentor of mine was J.T. Pugh. Had him down a couple times to do roundtables with ministers in the area when I pastored in Henry County, Georgia. And Brother Pugh said he was at the Presidio at like the World Planetary Citizens meeting in the 1980s. And he said, fascinatingly enough, one of the things discussed there, that was later given to Mikhail Gorbachev and all this for globalist purposes and various things. And so Brother Pugh just liked to go to things like this. So he said they taught a seminar on the psychological ramifications of believing God is one. And he said, this is in the 80s, he said a psychiatrist, they had come to the conclusion that people who believed God was absolutely one, not a compound one, were the only people that could maintain their faith in the eyes in the face of adversity and persecution, because they were able to focus the object of their love on one thing, not having it divided, very much proving this passage of Scripture. That's how you can love the Lord, when you know he's one and he was in Jesus Christ. Now, Paul says to the Colossians, which the Colossians may have been very near the Hypsisteirians, which was a pseudo Judaic sect that ultimately worshiped Zeus. They claimed they were Jews and were not. Probably this is who the synagogue of Satan's referring to in Revelation chapters 2 and 3, the Hypsisterians. You can look those up on Wikipedia, I guess you can. And he says this, beware lest any man spoil or take from you through philosophy, which doesn't lead to absolute truth. Trust me, I've been a doctoral candidate in philosophy, and by their own admission, it doesn't. You can have syllogistic logic that's not materially true, and vain deceit, worthless deceit, just deceiving after the tradition of men, not Heraclitus, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. For in him, who? Christ, dwelleth, right this second, all the fullness of the Godhead body, all the pleroma of the Godhead. Everything in Godhead is singular, not plural. I've done a video on that. Somehow when people see Godhead, you got one head, they think Godhead, it's a committee. No, it doesn't mean that at all. For in Jesus dwelleth all the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in him, Jesus, not them, as Brother Bernard so adroitly points out, which is the one head of all principality and power. Remember the famous book, I've done a review or maybe two here on the channel, Gordon McGee, is Jesus in the Godhead or is the Godhead in Jesus? The Bible is very clear, for in him, Jesus, dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. The Godhead is in Jesus. Jesus is not in the Godhead. This is just popular confusion, doctrines of devils, misunderstandings, man's sinful heart, obfuscating and making things appear that aren't there, kind of like a prism. It just distorts things sometimes, even though I know prism has some beautiful things in it too. And so Gordon McGee, he saw all the Church of God come to apostolic truth in Northern Ireland by pointing out, and you can still get some of his debates on eBay, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've got some. I may have done some reviews on them. That Jesus is in the Godhead. Excuse me. The Godhead is in Jesus. Jesus is not in the Godhead. But he made that point in saying, is Jesus in the Godhead or the Godhead in Jesus? The Godhead is in Jesus Christ. Now, there's one other just amazing foundational scripture, but we're going to make that a separate video. So God bless you. We love you. Just remember, God is one. Jesus said that's the most important thing you can know. God is one. Bye-bye.